Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar on luxury destinations in Brazil. My name is Bruno Correa, and I'm the owner and general manager of Solar Consulting. The objective of this webinar is to give you a first glance into Brazil because there's still a lot of misunderstanding about the country, and then focus on luxury destinations and some of the properties that I represent to Canada and the US. The first important point to realize is that Brazil is a massive country in terms of geography. It's 2 times the size of the European Union and 16 times the size of France. It's bordered by almost every country in South America, except for Chile and Ecuador. There are 200 million people in Brazil, largely Portuguese speakers. The country is also bathed by the Atlantic Ocean on the long coastline represented by the light blue color. Usually when we mention Brazil, the first things that come to mind are the warmth of the people, the beautiful beaches, Carnival as a country festival, and football, obviously, which to a lot of extent represents a lot of what the country has to offer. But there's so much more that people really don't realize so far. Brazil is extremely diverse, both in terms of geography, with the fair rainforest, islands, dunes, waterfalls, but also in terms of culture. Brazil is all about diversity. It's diverse in terms of nature, with beaches, forests, plateaus, waterfalls, dunes, but also culturally rich. We have a big melting pot of the indigenous people with strong African influence, but also European immigration. At luxury destinations, there is a high level of service that it's guaranteed. Brazil, especially for North Americans, is still kind of exotic and mysterious. Currently has a very attractive dollar value. And the great news that recently came out is that for the Olympics in 2016, there will be a waive in visa requirements for the US and Canada. Just a quick glance of what I do and my company does. We represent and promote luxury destinations in Brazil for Canada and the US, both with agencies such as yourselves, but also in terms of the end traveler through working with media in terms of press. These are the hotels that I represent in general. There's a map of Brazil just to position where the properties are. I will give a big focus today on Literária in Paraty, in the state of Rio, but I will have a quick glance through the others so that you have an understanding, and if you are interested on any of those, please let me know. Literária's position is located in Paraty, which is a midpoint between Rio and São Paulo. It's a 3.5-hour drive from São Paulo, 3-hour drive from Rio. The good thing is that the road there, it's usually by the beach. It's a coast trip from Rio, which is very beautiful. So people enjoy the ride. Paraty is a very historic city in Brazil. There's a very small historic center you can see on the top left, which is completely protected with cobblestone streets and colonial buildings. It's a very culturally rich city as well, because during the dictatorship in Brazil in the 60s, a lot of the artists fled the centers of Rio and São Paulo towards the small, secluded towns where they could hide, and Paraty was a big destination for them. So up until today, the town, even though it's small, it's very active culturally in terms of street artists especially. Paraty offers as a city, there's 2 sides to Paraty really. One side is the entirely charming historical elements to it, with the streets and the buildings, as I said, based on the colonial times, and still very much kept in that sense and protected. But also it has a big nature environment as well, because it's right in between the sea and the hills, so it offers both experiences. And Pousada Literária is located in Paraty, in the historical center of the city. It's been there for 5 years now. It's been elected the best pousada in Brazil by Vogue Magazine Brazil. It's a Virtuoso member, it's a Traveler Made member, has received a number of different awards in Brazil for its quality and a big focus in service. But there are a couple of things there that make also Literária unique to Paraty. First of all is that it's very different and really unique for a pousada in the historical center of the city to be an open air. When you open the door of your room at Pousada Literária, you see the sun and you see an open space. And usually, since the historical center is very small, pousada are all inside buildings which do not open to open air. So this is unique about Pousada Literária. Something else as well is that for the indoor pool, I will go back quickly to show, this pool is unique in terms of pousadas in Paraty, because all buildings, things that are protected, you cannot build your own pools for the pousadas. This pool was already there, so it was allowed to be kept. But this is something unique that you won't see on other pousadas. Even though the outside of the buildings are all protected, on the inside there's been a complete transformation of Pousada Literária, being decorated by some of the best architects and designers in Brazil, and state-of-the-art furniture as well. This is how a typical room in Pousada Literária looks. Even though the colors change a bit, the design changes a bit, and the same as the room format, but they keep the same line for every single room. As you can see, being Literária, it's named after the literary festival that happens in Paraty every year. We have books in the room which are adjusted to the client's language, obviously, so that he will find books for him to read in his room in his own language. Beyond the design and the structure that the guests will find, there is a big effort, as I mentioned earlier, in Pousada Literária for a fantastic quality of service, but also to deliver unique experiences to guests. The first one I'd like to show is the Paraty Suite, which is the top room at Pousada Literária. It's almost in a separate building, but fully served by the Pousada staff. It has two floors. On the top floor is the master bedroom and restroom, and on the bottom floor you have a dining room and a living room with top-end furniture and design. Another unique experience we deliver to guests is what we call Sea and Land. For guests willing to participate, we take them to the harbor of Paraty. We pick them up at the harbor with our own motorboats. We sail around the waters of Paraty, stopping by the beaches that they want, and then we close it by delivering them in a secluded bay called Saco do Mamanguá, where our own schooner will be waiting for them. It's called Maria Panela. There they will be welcomed by our chef with cocktails prepared for them. Then they can go snorkeling, they can go diving, they can go visiting the swamp areas nearby, and then they come back to Maria Panela, where the lunch is served for them in the schooner. Lunch is prepared at the schooner by our chef, and it's really a unique experience. The boat serves up to 20 people. It's available upon request. It can be either one full group, or we can work with separate groups of guests. I like to say that Pousada Literária is more than just a pousada to Paraty, but it's a big project. And part of this project is Muricana Farm. Muricana Farm is located a 10-minute drive from Pousada Literária. It's owned by the same owners of Pousada Literária. Muricana used to be a colonial farm, which has been completely abandoned and destroyed. And what I mean in projects that the owners are rebuilding it to what it used to be. And also there's a big replanting process going on to restore trees and the life that used to be there before it was destroyed. Naturally, when you replant the trees, you also bring birds back to the area. Paraty is not that well known, but Paraty is one of the most diverse areas in Brazil for birds and for bird watching. Now, Pantanal and the Amazon area obviously holds a larger amount of birds, but Paraty is one of the most diverse areas in Brazil. Paraty itself, it has approximately 480 different species of birds, and only in the area of Pousada Literária, of Muricana Farm, there are over 280 already identified. So it is a big place for bird watching experiences, both for the experienced ones, as well for just curious guests who want to get into the environment and connecting back with nature. So we offer this experience, which we basically take guests to Muricana Farm, where our own ornithologist shows them the birds that he caught the night before, which he would anyway for identification purposes, and then he goes through the process with guests, measuring the birds, tagging the birds, and obviously releasing them back to nature. This is a great experience, especially for kids. but for adults alike, because we close the experience with a picnic at the farm. Now, for those guests really into bird watching, we can take them to a further experience where we take a walk. Our own ornithologist, who happens to be blind, takes them for a walk in the farm, and at some places he makes them close their eyes, and he identifies birds around just by the sound of them, which it makes for something really, really unique and special for guests. All products from the farm are obviously 100% organic and supply our restaurant, Quintal das Letras, which is just next to the hotel, open to the public, but with priority access to guests. Apart from the restaurant, we also own our own spa, where we use all the best international brands, but also herbs also produced at Muricana Farm. So this is the summary about Posada Literária. I hope you realize by now what I meant earlier, that Literária is more than just one posada for Paraty, but it's part of a big project around Paraty with Muricana Farm, with the schooner experience, and with the spa and the restaurant. Apart from that, a couple of important reminders about Paraty and Literária is that ground transfers from the airports of Rio and São Paulo can be arranged through the Posada with our recommended partners. Apart from that, for all Virtuoso agencies, we offer special amenities as an automatic upgrade on arrival if available, but also a 50-minute massage at our spa for 2 people. How I mentioned earlier, apart from Literária, I also represent a number of other properties in Brazil, equally luxurious and equally with a high level of service. I will now briefly explain a little bit about them, and if you have any questions or any interest of learning a bit more about any of those or Literária, feel free to send me an email, call me, or access my website, which I'll show you later on. So this is Posada Literária, as we've already covered pretty extensively. Posada Tancamana, also in the state of Rio, up in the hills, about an hour and a half from Rio, very secluded, very romantic destination for whoever is already in Rio. I would recommend if on a couple, they can always go there for a romantic weekend. Solar do Império has been there for 10 years now in Petrópolis, which is a very historic city in Brazil, where the Portuguese royal family used to live or spend some time when they were based in Brazil. Very, very historical city for guests who are really into understanding more about history of the place they're in. Solar do Arco has recently been inaugurated, is in Cabo Frio, which is a beach town about 2 hours from Rio, close to Búzios, which is a famous beach town, on a historic building as well, right in front of a lagoon where you can go by boat to the beaches surrounding it. Casas Brancas Boutique Hotel and Spa is in Búzios, which is a famous beach town, again 2-hour drive from Rio. Very active town, both during the day and during the night. And Casas Brancas offers a balance to that, because it has a strong effort into delivering a great spa service. And Posada Tutabel, which will be inaugurated now on December 14th, next week, in the beach of Trancoso, Bahia. It's a fantastic place, very unique, only 8 rooms, building up to 16 on July 16. Another hotel is Carmel Charme, in the state of Ceará, on a relaxed and by the beach environment, but with a good structure for the entire family, with kids pool, kids room, tennis courts, gym, and everything that you can need in a fantastic location. Also in the state of Ceará, given the very windy beaches, which are great for water sports such as kite surfing and windsurfing, Carmel Cumbuco has recently opened, building on the same profile as Carmel Charme, but with a specific structure and services towards storage and the execution of water sports. And this is it for our webinar. Thank you very much for your attention and participation. My number is 647-620-8655. That's a direct line. You can find my emails on the screen. Please let me know if you have any questions, either directly related with the hotels or on general inquiries about Brazil. I am more than willing to help and to answer your concerns. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado. And I wish you great holidays for you and your family.